folks. Welcome inside the Paris Sea Palace, high above 3773 East Broadway. This is a live edition of the Jake Feinberg Show, comedy on Power Talk. Please go to our website, powertalk.live. Download our free app and stream all of our live local programming, including Solomon on Blast, the Jim Parisi Show, and yours truly, the Jake Feinberg Show. We can't thank you enough for making us part of your day today. And going back about 5 years in my journey here as a broadcaster, trying to stretch the lineage of all musics and the vocabulary of all musics, and also the understanding of how real music is made, I ran into a bass player who mentioned that he had collaborated with my next guest in a very, very interesting setting. And I was fascinated for a long time. The cat's name was evading me. I couldn't really figure out where this cat was, but yet he was part of the dialogue that I've been encompassing for the last 6 years on my program, over 1,000 primary source interviews. And coincidentally, I just talked to a drummer yesterday who in fact worked with my guest on a completely separate situation. And so once I got his full name, I was able to connect with him on Messenger. We friended yesterday, and now he's on my program. Muruga Booker, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Jake, it's fantastically, cosmically wonderful to be connected with you. And this shows how the cosmos works, that we are connected and that the internet and the electrical frequencies go out and can connect us from miles away into one space where we all could be one together. And this is so fantastic, and I'm so honored and blessed to be on your show and for you to think of me to be here with you. And God bless all you people. We're all one. We're one spirit. We come from one cosmic sound, vibration, and light, the uncreated energies of the cosmos. And that's in us. It's our life force. That's what's making us play, you know?
Well, I mean, I feel you 100%, and I believe we all are one human race. I think at 39, I felt like in the 90s when I was coming up in high school through college, I thought we were living in a kind of a post-racial time. But obviously, as the generations die off from the Holocaust and from the world wars that we fought, the Korean War, these cultural biases sink in again. Sometimes even at a deeper level, and it's poisonous, and it affects future generations. And so one of the reasons I do this show is for my daughters and future generations to understand how real music is made, because ultimately real music involves rhythm, and rhythm is love, and that's what I've discovered on my program. So it is really beautiful to talk to you. I wanted to, I don't have the soundbite queued up, but I was talking to Glenn Moore back 5 years ago. He came out here, the bass player, and I met him out. I met him out in a rural area in Arizona. He was at this sort of retreat in a tent. He had his gut string upright bass, and we had a chance to meet in person. We did an interview there, and he was talking about this really interesting time. And he mentioned that when he was working with Tim Hardin, and you were the drummer in that band. And I wanted,
yes, exactly.
I wanted you to talk about, before we get into anything else, I want to do it because basically what was happening was Tim was having a nervous breakdown. Tim was a mess, and he had to finish these albums for Columbia, and Towner, and whatever ideas you guys were giving him, he was not into. He was obviously really psychologically not in great shape. And then actually when it came time to get into the studio, Glenn said that Muruga did not show up for the session. And so I was like,
right.
Who is Muruga? That's when you first came up. This was back in 2012. So the Cosmos vibrations went out at that point. And then yesterday, just by chance, I reach out to Herschel Dwellington, and he's like,
wow.
Yeah. And he's like, I look at his thing, and I'm like, wait a minute. I just randomly, because we've been friends for a minute on Facebook, and I realized he went to Berklee College of Music, and I said, holy crap, he probably knew John Abercrombie. not only did he know John Abercrombie, who recently left us 2 days ago. I don't know if you knew that or not. But
oh, God bless him. Oh, I'm so sad to hear this.
yeah, so he left us, and we had. So not only am I talking to Herschel about John, but then it turns out that I didn't even realize that he had ever collaborated with Zawinul, and there's Muruga Booker, and so it all comes full circle. But let's go back to Tim Hardin. How did you meet Tim Hardin, and talk about that band and ultimately the dissolution, or why you didn't show up for that session?
Okay, I'll tell you. Very interesting, and it also was a very illuminating thing for me in my life. Number one, I used to play with Jim and Gene on Verb Forecast.
Oh my God, are you kidding me?
The Changes album.
Oh.
Yeah, and I was Steve Booker at the time, and I did the Changes album, and I'm on People World, and we had a trio, and we were playing colleges. Well, regardless, the group, it broke up and things, and I went on to play with Paul Winter, the Winter Consort.
Sure.
And I loved the music. So he had me because he wanted me to bring in, number one, I understood jazz, I understood rock, and blues and folk, but I also used to listen to classical music, so even though I wasn't trained, I was ignorant to being a classical musician, but yet I would listen to a lot of classical music to get rhythmical and musical concepts. And so I love Paul Winter for that. But he wanted me to bring in the Proclo Harum kind of whiter shade of pale beat, to the Bach Cantata 127 and stuff. And at the same time, we were playing Indians by Charles Ives, and we were playing Bartok's Ballad in 7/8, and it's so wonderful stuff, But at the same time, Hendrix was going out, and there was an explosion, psychedelic explosion, and we're on A&M Records, and I'm trying to tell Paul, hey, let's go a little further out, Let's do that improvisation and take it to the next level, And I had electric cymbals, and I was making wah-wah sounds and stuff like this here, sounding like bombs, and half of the audience would leave, and the other half would give me a standing ovation, and Paul thought, but I had a wah-wah cymbal, doing that kind of stuff, and I was changing and sustaining sound on drums, and he thought I was crazy, so I quit. Now I quit, and in that band was also Richard Bach.
Right.
So now, he's the fantastic cello player. Wow. Oh, man. Brings tears to your eyes. But anyways, so Richard and I are now hanging with Jim and Gene. That's why I was telling you about that.
I'm following you 100%. By the way, was Gene was Gene Bertoncini in that Winter Consort group?
Yes. And I even did a jazz thing with him in upstate New York, in some little jazz bar, and I love him so much.
Dude, that dude is, you talk about the greatest provolone coming over from Italy, dude. That dude is so great, man. McCandless was in the group, but even Paul Winter was a little too square for the Muruga
this
sonic
is what I'm talking about. Now watch. I'm going to explain this. Now watch this.
Yeah.
See? So we quit Paul Winter, and I go over to Jeannie's house, and Jeannie says, let's go to the Cafe at Go-Go, because we used to rehearse there. We'd be rehearsing at the same time Blood, Sweat, and Tears, and Al Cooper was rehearsing, the same time that Jimi Hendrix was rehearsing with what's the blues guy? I forgot his name. Anyways, Hendrix, Buddy Miles, Blood, Sweat, and Tears, all rehearsing there. And so we went there in the afternoon. There's a jam session. And in the jam session is Tim Hardin. And in the jam session is also Jeremy Steig.
Wow.
Whoa.
And Jan Hammer, was it Jan Hammer too? This is unbelievable.
I think Perry, who you played the music of. We did that was our song, Perry's song that he wrote. That was that he used to take me to Jan Hammer's house. I didn't even know who he was, and we'd be jamming during the day.
Yeah, it was the Thar song. The Thar song.
The Thar song, which is influenced by Perry's vision of seeing Tibetan monks going down the hill. And it's a weird song because he turns it around. He actually turns the beat around, but the drums are supposed to stay straight, so he's on the offbeat, and then at the end of the phrase, he turns it around and it goes onto the beat again. It's a real mind twister.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
Right? Yeah, and I mean, we went through ages of that, but okay, I'll explain that a little later. So now Jeannie says, so we're jamming now, and Tim Hardin's playing, right? I just left Paul Winter the week before this, right?
Sure.
And I left Paul Winter right after I did the Fillmore with him in Spirit on 1969 New Year's Eve, and then right after that I went for the summer, and then I quit just a week before Woodstock. I quit Paul Winter, right? Because I was now understand I quit. I was making, if I didn't work, I was making $250, and during the working cycle, I'm making $650 a week in 1967 and 8. Gretsch gave me all my drums, and I had a new van. I was in a pretty nice situation, right?
Sure.
And I gave that up to search for the music. And you got to be able to do that, to search for your truth. So now, here we are jamming with Tim Hardin. And what a set that was. Jeremy Stein playing with Tim Hardin, and Ginny and Jim, and not Jim, she was already divorced. And so, therefore, we were just with Jeannie and myself, and there's Tim Hardin. The set ends. And Tim Hardin puts his guitar back into his guitar case and starts to walk out the door. So I followed him out. And I said, hey, Tim, now I always loved him from, if I were a carpenter, that song was a very nice song. And it was a hit. I knew it, in my youth, in the days of early rock and roll. I knew that song. But the way Tim does it, Tim, to me, is a cross between Dylan and Billie Holiday.
Yeah, no, I mean, what Glenn Moore said that he could Tim Hardin could look you in the eye and sing you a song about what you were feeling inside and do it authentically.
Yes, yeah, totally 100% real.
Yeah.
So now here we are. Tim Hardin is walking down Bleecker Street. And I said, hey, Tim, man, that was really great. He says, hey, man, I really dug your playing. If you're ever in Woodstock, give me a call. I said, well, give me your number. I says, by the way, and I made a white lie, okay?
Sure.
I said, I'm going to be in Woodstock in the morning having a meeting. Why don't I give you a call right after the meeting? Right? In my childish ways back then, but sometimes you do these things.
No, I think that's just called being crafty, actually. I don't really think that's a big deal.
Yeah, exactly. So, I says, I'm going to be there. I didn't want to show him that I was that anxious, but I said, I'm already going to be there. I'll give you a call. Meanwhile, I'm thinking, holy shit, I'm going to go and see Tim Hardin. That's cool. So I go and I see Tim Hardin the next day. He's sitting in the middle of his cabin with a big jukebox playing on a balcony, and he's sitting in the water, in the middle of the living room, totally nude, eating a watermelon that is laced with DMT.
Yeah, no, okay. DMT, Marty Ballin said that was his drug of choice with Kesey and Garcia. They had a ball on DMT.
I did DMT with my shaman friend who I did Journey of the Drums with, Prem Das. because he lived with the Weishel Indians and became an apprentice with peyote and DMT with the Weishel Indians. So, you know, when you mess with these things, you should mess with people who have been trained by the masters and by the shamans, you know?
Right.
And, right? So it's all on a spiritual level. So we took DMT with him. I was with my ex-wife, and we took DMT that night too, via watermelon, something like that.
Right.
Whoa! So that was a very out there, pleasant night. And then the next day he says, you know, I'm doing a little gig in town, down at, you know, Jaeger's farm, and he says to me, it's just going to be a little gig, you know.
It's Woods. You're kidding me. It's Woodstock. Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
He says that it's going to be a little gig. He said we're going to do the Isle of Wight after this. It's going to be a real gig. This is just at Jaeger's farm. You know, all of us hippies who are radicals, who, you know, at the time we were very radical. You know, Jimi Hendrix in Harlem, they threw tomatoes at him. I had their live recording of it, you know, and they said, go back to the village with the hippies. We don't want to hear that shit.
Hold on. I mean, wait, was he, I just want to be clear. He was playing up like near Minton's, like the jazz area, and the jazzers were giving him a hard time?
No, he was down in Harlem playing a festival, outside festival, like a rock festival, you know, rock and blues or, you know, funk, and he was playing psychedelic. And people said, boo, you know, go back to the, you know, to the village and play that crap. We don't play that up here.
Wow.
And it's the early time when he was first experimenting. Now, nobody knew who he was. They were throwing tomatoes. But regardless, here I am. Well, I was with Tim. You know, how I talked with him is I said, hey, I got 2 joints. You want to smoke one? And we started smoking. He gave me his phone number, and I ended up seeing him, as I said. Now, he says it's going to be a small gig. All of us radicals, you know, Hendrix and, you know, all of the different groups that have problems getting gigs because we're too out and they associate us with LSD and drugs and nobody wants to hire us. We're going to do a festival, all of us dudes, right here at Jaeger's farm. And then after that, we're going to go do a really big festival. So then we're there with the whole group, and I got Richard Bach to come in from the Winter Consort. So now we're rehearsing with him, and this guy's like Billie Holiday. You know, his emotion, his voice, you know, his phrasing, really deep. And so 2 days go by, and then maybe 3 days, and then he says, I have a meeting I got to go to, and I'll be right back. So that meeting lasted for 2 or 3 days.
Jeez.
He's gone, leaving the whole band in his cabin. Right?
Wait, I'm sorry. So wait, did you do the Woodstock had not taken place yet? Is that right, or it had?
It didn't take place. We're rehearsing for it.
Okay, so then he disappears for 2 days. All right, you're all there in the cabin.
We're in the cabin rehearsing to play the festival at the farm.
My God.
At the Woodstock farm. We're just going to play at the Woodstock farm. This old man Jaeger is letting them have the thing there. You know, I think Lang and them were trying to build a recording studio, so they threw a little festival, peace and love, you know, and they could make enough money to build their studio. You know,
he was like, despite the fact that he was so incredible, he had such great stage presence and dynamics, and he really was able to tell a story. He was like really unhinged at that point. I mean, there was a bar, a couple of my.
Well, I'll explain this. Let me explain this, and you'll see how unhinged it is. So now he leaves for 3 days, leaving the band there. We're saying, do we stay here? Do we wait for him? You know, I mean, we don't know what's going on. And Ralph Towner and you know, all the guys, we're all there. Richard Bach, the guy from the Winter Consort, and he's the first celloist in America in the New York Symphony, right? And I got these guys there. You know, I'm with them all, and all of a sudden he comes back on a second or third day, and he's got a whole pile of clothes that he bought at one of the hippie stores. I mean, Indian shirts and pants and this and that and psychedelic, all of that. He says, I'm back. And he throws all the clothes down and he says, I bought all these clothes for you to wear for this weekend gig. He says, I'm sorry. He says, I had to take care of some business. I had to go talk to this guy. I had to go do this, do that. But, Gillis, his friend, knew all of his songs and was teaching them to us. And we were practicing while he was gone for 3 days, which was a wonderful time with these great musicians.
Sure,
right?
Sure.
So now we go to do the gig. We hop in the car. It's 10 miles of cars. And we're going all day, and people in stores are coming out to us with the product in hand saying, would you like a pop? Would you like to buy a beer? Would you like to have a slice of pizza? Would you like some potato chips? Because they knew that we were in line. We couldn't leave the car. We're bumper to bumper. It's going slow as a turtle. And, and so the stores were coming out and vending to us personally right in the car. And we're paying them from the car window. Right?
Unbelievable. This is unbelievable.
Melanie is in the car in front of me. Right? So now we get about a half a mile down finally. We get out by the Holiday Inn, and we check in, and then we go and wait in this field. And we're sitting in the field, and who's sitting in front of me is Swami Satchidananda.
That was Felix Cavalari's guru.
Yeah, I played with him once. I met him. We were casually, cross paths. So now, Satchidananda's there, and I already had been into yoga since, strangely enough, I was introduced to yoga in '64 when I got stranded in Albuquerque trying to make it big getting to California and never made it. But I made it to Albuquerque. The car broke down. I had to go back. But while I was in Albuquerque, I got initiated by a Swami disciple of Shivananda.
Wow.
And who happened to be the teacher of Satchidananda. So in '64, I meet the disciple of Shivananda, and then in '69, I meet the other disciple of Shivananda. It's the power of great gurus. Now, I'm sitting there, and I was also initiated into the TM with Maharishi and, met Paul Horn and all of that. So I knew the yoga, and I'm looking at him, and this dude had a 15-foot aura going around, totally gold white light.
Wow! And you were not, and you weren't tripping out or anything.
I was just straight.
I want to be clear. Did you connect with Emil Richards on that trip? Did you go to India to see Maharishi?
No, I was playing at the Sahara in 1967 with Freddie Bell and the Bellboys at the Sahara, opposite Don Rickles. And I'm Serbian, and I went for a walk with the same wife that was at Woodstock, and I see Angelina's restaurant, and she's a famous Serbian singer. So I go in there and say, "Kako si sestra?" How are you, my sister? And I can speak a little bit Serbian,
Yeah.
And she goes, "Oh, my brother." She says, "Come sit here." And I said, and she sent to me for free every Serbian delicacy and meal and the whole thing. And the waiter who brought it was a TM instructor, Tony Rittendale.
Wow, unbelievable.
And then until then I was trying to play like Art Blakey with that left foot, and my left foot got really tense, and I was on pills in the '60s, and my body was tense, and my left foot was really tense, and that's shit not to be messed with. And excuse my French, but it's the truth. And so now I got into TM, and I meditated for the first night, and I went to the gig at the Sahara, and I played, and my left foot and my body was totally relaxed because I tranced out into deep meditation.
Wow.
And And the whole band turned around and said, "What happened? What did you do?" I said, "What do you mean?" They said, "Well, you're not playing as tense as you were. We could see that you're totally released." And that's what just one meditation did for me.
Okay, this is
Okay,
so you got the 15-foot golden ring around Swami.
Around Satchidananda.
Yeah.
And so I got my little clay drums and I start playing on them like tablas,
I did.
And I close my eyes and I'm far out and I'm saying to myself, I'm going to play these little drums, attract his attention, and if he's a real saint, he's going to know that I'm yearning to know God. And so I'm playing the little drums, and I'm doing these little Indian kind of tabla riffs, that I would do with Paul Winter and shit. And so now I open my eyes. He's walking into the helicopter. They're taking him away. I says, well, I guess I lost out on that one, right? So I'm sitting there. The helicopter comes back and picks me up, right? With Tim and everybody. Takes us up. Drops us off backstage. I get off the helicopter, and I'm walking with my little clay drums. And Satchidananda looks at me and says, "Oh, look, there's the boy I told you about that plays the drums just like the tablas." And he goes, "Taka, tiki, taka." I says, "Oh, you don't have to show them with your hands. I'll sit down and play for you." So I sat down in the middle of the field with Satchidananda, and I start playing my drums and trancing out. Now we're backstage and I'm trancing out, and all of a sudden the spiritual voice comes. "Stop playing, you fool. You're the one who has the questions. You're not here to show him. He's here to show you."
I dig.
So I go, and I stopped. And I said, "Sir, what is the meaning of life?" He goes, "Oh." Now, you gotta picture this, people out there. I'm talking to you about a very cool time at Woodstock when the fence went down because 10 miles of people were crowding on the fence, and the fence just went down, and they yelled, "Free festival!"
Right. My man, I've done 3 interviews with Hugh Romney, Wavy Gravy. He was serving breakfast and keeping security there.
Yeah, so the fence goes down, and Satchidananda points to the whole field, that as far as the eye can see. Okay, I even wrote the song, "Jamming at Woodstock, Tim Hardin, friends and me, million people in my eyes, as far as the eye can see. There I met a Swami man, he talked to them and me. Good or bad you could do, the choice is up to you. But I wasn't supposed to go, my friend, no, I wasn't supposed to go, because I was supposed to know, my friend, popping pills ain't good for me." Right? It impacted me so much. I even wrote it in the song. So he points to the people, like the ants crawling over a hill in Africa when they come, and invade, And he says, "See all those people?" I says, "Yes, sir." He says, "They are energy. And you are energy. And God gave you a free will to do good or bad, to be positive or negative. The choice is up to you. You are going on a stage as a musician. Hundreds of thousands of people came to see you play. Which way are you going to make them go? With your energy connecting to their energy. Are you going to be positive or negative? And it's your choice, and that's life." Right then, I saw a photographer going to take the picture of Tim Hardin and Richie Havens.
Wow.
So I picked up my drums. It was 15 feet away, and I whisked myself in between the two of them before he got the picture taken. And as I'm going to walk there, Satchidananda says, "What's your name?" I said, "Steve Booker." He goes, Booker, you come and see me in New York." So then I go and I stand in between the two. The picture is taken, and that picture happens to be the centerfold of the Woodstock to be remembered.
That
the guy
that is one of So, bottom line is, did you go to Isle of Wight with Hardin?
No. So now watch. So then we Satchidananda goes and talks. Then we go and play with Hardin. He played the first couple of songs by himself. He was stalling because he was so stoned on heroin.
Right.
That's why. That's the nervous breakdown. And he was supposed to go on before Richie Havens. And Richie Havens kept on playing a long set, not because he was hogging it, but because they kept told him, keep playing. Tim ain't down yet.
Right, he hadn't come down yet.
Yeah, right?
Oh,
we
man.
all go through these things. It's not judgment. I have no judgment. I love Tim, but I went through it with a friend of mine who was my mentor, who played with Charlie Parker, Woody Herman, Claude Thornhill. He played with Kingsman. He played with Stan Getz, and he was a heroin addict. And I saw him die, and I was tired of it, and I did not want to be around that no more.
What was it, Tiny Khan?
No, Pat Bovey.
No, I mean, listen. I'm producing a film documentary on Stan Getz, and so that cat. I don't want to get too deep in the weeds here. Who gave you? Did you go see Satchidananda in New York?
Yeah, I'll get right to that. So then, we play the Woodstock. We go. I wake up that morning. The helicopter wouldn't take me back, and in the night. So I wake up to hearing coughing, and there it is, Oliver Guthrie and his band, smoking hash, sitting at a card table under the tent where we all spent the night because it rained, and we were backstage.
Wow.
And so I sat, and I said, hi, I'm the drummer with Tim Hardin, how are you? And he said, oh, cool, man, you want some hash? And then he says, we're going to be going back to the motel. I said, you think I could cop a ride with you? And, yep. And so I get in the car with him, and we're riding out. That's when we went past where the first accident went, where the trailer ran over the guy and killed him.
Right.
And I was driving right past that just seconds after that happened. So then we go back, and then we play the World State Pavilion with Odetta and the Incredible String Band opening up for us.
Wow.
And then we're all backstage, and I'm seeing Tim with like a bless his soul, though. It's sad, and we don't blame. It's just things that happen to us. But there he is with a heroin horse needle, a horse needle,
right,
full of heroin. And here he is, Tim. The needle goes in, Hardin squeezes the stuff in, and he staggers out on stage. But that set was one of the best sets, and Ralph Towner and Glenn Moore and Gillis and the band were such masters, so supreme, and it was such an honor. That set we were on so heavily. So then we get through with the set, and we're supposed to go check into the hotel, and I didn't like what I saw with the heroin, and at Woodstock, I didn't even take no acid. I smoked a joint.
Yeah, you were. I mean, dude, you were channeling. You were on a different frequency altogether. You were channeling rhythms and East Indian mythology, dude. You were grooving, man. You didn't need any drugs.
Yeah, no, I didn't need all of that stuff. I did it all, and I saw that I didn't need it anymore.
Right.
Oh,
it's interesting.
I went where
interesting.
I was living for.
I dig.
I was 2 weeks on acid, not coming down. Driving my Cadillac in the middle of the winter, going to play the Frolic Bar. But so now we go to check in, and I'm totally dressed like a hippie. Long hair, headband, the Indian clothes that I picked out that Tim Hardin gave us all. I look like I was from Baghdad. So I'm walking in with my wife and my hand drums to this elegant hotel, like, the Leamington Hotel or some kind of thing like that in New York. Just totally elegant, $150 a night or something, And they send me there. The band manager drops me out, tells me to go there. And they gave me my check for Woodstock. I don't know. I had I don't know, was it 600 or something? I don't know, something. But they wouldn't cash my check. I didn't have a bank account. I'm a hippie without a bank account. You know, I just left Paul Winter. You know, so I had no bank account or nothing. And then they looked at me and they said, "Well, we're all full. We can't let you stay here," because they discriminated on my looks. I went to the next big high-class hotel that they sent me to. Same thing happened. It's really hot, and it's in the afternoon in New York, and you're on 6th Avenue or Broadway or something like that, and the cars are going in and out. And I says, "Man, I can't even, I just played a big old festival for these guys. This guy's shooting up heroin. I can't even get myself into a doggone hotel, take a shower. I can't eat. And they want me to go to a recording session. Nobody's worrying about my ass." And so I went up to the recording session, and I says, "Tell them," you know, I saw one of the guys on the corner. I says, "Tell them I ain't coming." And I drove off. I didn't want nothing to do with the heroin. I didn't want nothing to do with not taking care of business and discrimination. And I was a rebel. And I drove off. And I should have gone and done it for them, you know. But I was such a rebel at the time, you know, that I drove off. Maybe now I might have been, you know, different.
Well, so, it's fascinating. It's so interesting because you did this wraparound thing, because what wound up happening was like that session that was going on was for the Paul Winter concert. Ultimately, Colin Walcott, they brought Airto in because you didn't show up. They brought
okay. Watch. Now I'm going to tell you that. I'm going to tell you.
Dude, I just want to let you know.
Listen. This is what I forgot to tell you. We're sitting backstage in the field where we were with Satchidananda. And I had my little hand drums, and Colin Walcott and Ralph Towner and Glenn Moore were sitting backstage on the grass playing their guitars. And we were doing this raga. And I was playing my hand drums, and Richard Bach had his cello, and we're playing, see? I mean, we're all there. You know, you see Ravi Shankar over there having a cup of coffee, Ala Raka's having a coffee and a cigarette, blowing my mind. I thought they were all pure, you know.
Dude, Ala Raka, I mean, did you get to play clay drums with Ala Raka? That's unbelievable, man.
No, but I got blessed by Ravi Shankar on the head. But anyways, we're jamming with Glenn Moore and Richard Bach. You know, they're in the field, and we get through playing, and Richard and I looked at each other, and we said we should turn them on to Paul. So I said, "Hey, Glenn, we just quit the Winter Consort last week. He needs a band. Here's his phone number. Give him a call." End of story.
Wow.
That's how that happened.
I mean, I just want to let you know that trip we just went on was 40 minutes. That was a trip, man. That was one of the, I mean, we haven't even scratched the surface with Muruga Booker. I want to go back to Detroit for a minute. Did you know, I mean, so many of the jazz clubs were also playing blues and R&B and soul music. I'm just wondering, did you get a chance to go to the West End Cafe and play with Elvin or Milt Jackson's brother? I'm just curious about, because, like, I mean, you're from that generation where, truthfully, the masters at that time, Flanagan, Bird, Burrell, you know, they were basically going to each other's houses and creating on their own. There were no music schools. And so, like,
yeah, you're right. I was jamming with Billy Burrell at the time, and there was a great piano player, Hal McKinney.
Why don't you riff on that? Because this is important, because my generation, I'm a Gen Xer, millennials, my daughters are younger than that. You know, there's a formula for everything now. Back then, you guys were building vocabulary music in your own way. Can you talk about sort of the street scholar approach to Billy Burrell and Muruga, et cetera, et cetera?
Okay, well, the truth is, back then, if you wanted to play jazz or blues, then you have to hang with the ones that are doing it. You have to hang with them and find the best ones that are doing it. Pat Bowlby, I found. He played with Charlie Parker, I told you.
How do you spell that last name?
Bolwby.
B-O-W...
Pat Bolwby, Bowlby.
Wow. Okay, go ahead.
And I know that he played with Stan Getz because when I saw Stan Getz in New Jersey with my friend Richie Nagin, I said to Stan, "Hey, do you know Bronze, Pat Bowlby?" He says, "Oh, shit, you know, bro?" I says, "Yeah." He says, "You know how much heroin we shot up?" I said, "No." He said, "You know how much wind in our arms?" You know, and he says, "Man," he says, "Do you play?" I says, "Drums." He said, "You played with Bowlby?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, anybody who plays with Bowlby, it's got to be good. You're sitting in on the next set." And I had a chance to jam with Stan Getz.
Get the fuck out of here.
It's the
Hold on. Here's the thing. There was a bass player, Buell Neidlinger, who wound up playing upright or played with Stan, and they were on the New Jersey Turnpike, and they were all just junked. I mean, they were all shooting up in the bathroom. Stan Levy was on drums, and then at one point, so they're all sort of fading out or just going into their own sort of catatonic state. I've never done heroin, so whatever, but. It's like Stan looks over at Buell and says, "Hey man, can I get the rest of your heroin?" I mean, these guys were serious. But Bowlby, what instrument did he play?
Tenor sax.
Wow, dude, that's a mind. And so then, did you run into Stan prior to the Girl from Ipanema? Was this like early '60s? When was this?
No, maybe just a year or two before he died.
Wow. So really, so you're talking like late '80s because he died in '91.
No, I'm talking about maybe about 89 or something of that nature.
Unbelievable. Very, very cool. So, I mean, when you talk about you had to play with...
I thought it was in the 90s. It could have even been.
No, he was dead. But he was, I honestly, we got to vet this closer because, if you know, who was on drums? Was it Billy Hart? Who was playing drums?
I had no idea. My friend just took me to the club where Stan Getz was. I didn't even know what the shit was going on. It happened to be Stan Getz, and I asked him the question because my mentor told me about it so much, Like I also, in Detroit, I also hung out with Bill Jennings. He helped write Honky Tonk and was Ray Charles's guitar player. He's one of the early innovators. He taught Wes Montgomery how to play.
Are these? I just want to, Muruga. I got to.
And drinking Coconut. In the '60s, we were doing everything to experiment. We were trying to find ourselves. So here I am smoking a joint and drinking a bottle of Coconut with Bill Jennings, and he's telling me, "Yeah, I taught Wes Montgomery how to play. After he put his kids through college, he started playing guitar, and he lived down the block." And I said, and he also played, left-handed or whatever it was, or like how Wes Montgomery did. And so I'm here smoking a joint, drinking Coconut in an alley, and this guy's telling me that, and I'm thinking to myself, "Yeah, I bet he taught Wes Montgomery." And then the old man says, "You want me to take you to see Wes tonight? He's at Baker's Keyboard." I said, "Really?" He says, "Yeah." I said, "Take me." We go, and see, I was just playing in a little black. They call them, black and tans. It was the Chitlin Circuit, jazz blues place called the Frolic Bar. It was an organ trio, guitar, bass, and organ, and sometimes a horn with Bill Jennings. And he gave me the gig. He says, because the white guys wouldn't let me play. They were all frat. I had long hair. And Bill says, "You come play with me and you got chops. I can see it, but I'm going to show you what to do with your chops. And he says, now, I'm going to pay you $100, but I'm taking half of the pay. And I'm going to buy us a bag of weed. And then we're going to play music and smoke some reefers, and you're going to learn what to do with your chops.
Wow. Wow.
Right.
What? So it had.
Yeah.
There. So was there this?
Then he took me to see Wes Montgomery, and Wes Montgomery's sitting there with Wynton Kelly and Paul Chambers, and Wes looks at Bill. I'm still. Oh, we walk in, and the doorman says, "Yes, sir, Mr. Bill Jennings. Come right in, sir. You don't have to pay, sir. Thank you for coming, sir. Oh, your guest can be with you, sir." I'm going, wow. Here's this old guy at the Frolic Bar, and all of a sudden he's like this here star, and I didn't realize it. And we walked past Wes Montgomery, and Wes says, "Bill, hey, you play." And he threw the guitar in Bill's hands and walked off stage. And then Wynton Kelly and Paul Chambers says, "What do you want to do?" He says, "Blues, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4." And they started playing. It blew my mind. See, but you mentioned Detroit. What are you?
Yeah. Yeah. You had to play with those.
I played with. I didn't. I played blues from the '50s, but until '65, I played with John Lee Hooker. Then he became my godfather of blues. Then I considered myself a blues man, and then played with Jimmy Reed and played with, Junior Wells and Buddy Guy at the Chessmate in Detroit.
So these cats would. These basically you were the house drummer for when these cats would come in.
Yes, I was at the Chessmate. How'd you know that?
Well, because those cats, none of them lived locally in Detroit. So when they would come in, you were the house drummer. I want to go back to this idea of him saying when we get high on marijuana, you're gonna learn how to use your chops. Was that something? What did it do? It just freed you up? Can you explain why the two were linked?
First of all, you can go all the way back to the Chinese.
I dig.
Who write about the spiritual experience of having hemp, and there is a receptor in our brain that is a THC receptor kind of thing. What's it called? Cannabinoids. It's the cannabinoids in the brain.
Oh my God!
If we didn't have cannabinoids, if marijuana wasn't good for us in certain ways, we wouldn't have cannabinoids.
Well, I can honestly say it elevates me to that those neurons. It starts to cook, man. But I'm saying, as it relates,
Okay, I understand. I'll explain this.
Yeah.
Watch. First of all, the body, the person. Usually, people are stuck in their mind, in their emotions, and in their body. So they're playing from body, mind, emotion, reflex.
Right.
And they're playing from the remembrance of all the precognitions that they had that they're recalling and remembering. And I call it a blues beat, a rock beat, a jazz swing, rock, boom, boom, all of these things, And it's like an old drum student came to me and says, "Hey, you showed me a long time ago. I want to show you, what I know." And he played a rock beat, a blues beat, a jazz beat, a polka beat, a this beat, a that beat. I says, "Okay, now you showed me that you play beats. Now, can you play the drums?" And there's just a difference. And so usually people are playing beats, they're playing songs, but they're not playing the instrument. They're not playing their soul. And they don't even know their soul yet because their body, mind, emotion, related to. But when you meditate, you could transcend your body, mind, and emotion. Now, what pot does is it helps to still this thinking mind that makes us the robot that we become. And it stops that. And it opens you up to just being free beingness. And at that point, you get into almost a very meditative state. But I want to caution people, There's an old Orthodox saying that the pot has one culprit to it. If you let it be, don't think that the pot is going to show you the Holy Spirit, or is the Holy Spirit.
Right.
Don't think the high from the pot is the spiritual experience. Okay? Because the pot will open you up to stop the mind so you could perceive experience. So the pot can be an assistance to still the mind so the creative process can bubble up and brew. So you could be opened up to intuition. Even Einstein says the greatest thing to connect to God, intuition. Now, one time I was going to be a monk with Swami Satchidananda, and I lived as a celibate monk for 2 years, meditating 7 hours a day. Not sex for 2 years, and total vegetarian. Started off on yogurt, honey, fruit juice, and milk for 40 days to purify, and then proceeded for the 2 years. And I says to Satchidananda, I think I'm going to give up my drums and give up everything. Satchidananda says, oh, yeah, become a Swami, give up everything, but never give up your drums. I says, well, why, Swamiji? He says, well, God is the creative power of the cosmos and universe. And when you play the drums, you are co-creating with God, and God is coming through you. And when you play music, it's the closest you'll ever come to God.
You still with me?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is really.
It just took me out. Just to remember that just took me out. It brought tears of bliss to my eyes. Whew. You know, when you play music, okay, I became a Nada yogi. Nada yogi is one who's one with the sound, cosmic sound. The Bible says in the beginning is the Word, and then there was light. So a word is sound. In the beginning is sound, and there is light. What it's really saying is in the beginning was an uncreated power, and that power moved. And the movement became energy power. And the movement causes friction. And friction causes a visual and audio experience. So the friction of vision is light, and the friction of movement. See, the friction of movement is in a vision is light, and the friction of movement in sound is sound. So light and energy creates, or energy creates sound and light. But there is a third party that is observing the fact that there is a sound and that there is a light and that there is an energy or a non-energy. And that's your intelligent beingness.
Mm-hmm.
So that intelligent beingness is the ground of your being. That's the Father. Then it begets this energy. That's the Son. And the energy moves, and that's the Spirit. Beingness, energy, movement. Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, now and ever, at the ages of ages. Amen. So be it. So it's this unbegotten energy, this uncreated source being that's full of energy that moves, is the Trinitarian aspect. Now, how do I relate that to drumming? I'm playing. Now, what I've seen when you smoke weed and you play is, first of all, the weed opens up such an enormous amount of energy through your nervous system,
Right.
that it shocks the nervous system slightly, And unless you're very subtly aware of yourself, you won't notice this. You'll just be in an unknown tension, but it's unseen and unrecognized. But a real proficient person, knowing himself, who's resurrected above body and mind and energy frequency to the ground of being, can observe this tension and work with itself to release it. So I suggested if you do smoke, and I do have a medical card, I do have, in the early days I smoked it because I loved it for creativity. Now, it's not only creative, but I have a pinched spine. I'm going to have it operated. It's going to be fine afterwards, but right now it's a lot of pain. And I'm pressure on my eyes, borderline could be glaucoma, but having a little bit of hemp, the medical marijuana, is keeping the pressure off my eyes and making the pain subside in my body from the spine. So that's really cool. But what I've saw is that when I go straight, I get to a real higher frequency than you could ever do with pot. But the pot could show you those frequencies if you haven't had them before. But you should be able to have it naturally. But the pot will show you something, just like peyote. Now, I was a pill guy for 6 years. Now, I never would take a drug. One day I went with the flu to a gig, and it was a nice, upstanding boy playing piano. I thought he was really nice, playing all bar mitzvahs with him. And I was sick as a dog, and he says, "Hey, take this pill. It's like an aspirin. He says, it'll make you feel better right away." I took it. It was a Benny, and I didn't stop for 6 years. Just because somebody gave me, a nice person gave it to me. And strangely enough, my mother was taking them for diet pills. So my mother would give them to me. And nobody thought it was bad. I got stopped by the cops. And I had to hide my marijuana, but the cop says, and I did, but the cop found my pills. He says, "What's this?" I said, "This is the diet pills that my mom gave me to stay awake to drive from New York to Detroit." He goes, "Oh, okay, here." He gave them back. So it was innocent.
Well, I just, Muruga, I mean, this is like, we're going to have to do about 7 interviews, man. I'm already, we burned through an hour, man. I can't even believe what you just, I feel like I'm coming down after, some orange sunshine or something, man. I am really on a trip right now. This is unbelievable, man.
God bless you. I'm so happy. It's Shakti Pod. The energy can travel through the system.
I've been up. I
want to say.
Yeah, no. I mean, I just want to say. I have been. I mean, Stanley Clark told me, that what you've been talking about is. I've just been operating on this frequency because I've tapped into the most spiritual cats who learned from the masters, and I'm weaving this story and this oral history and using new media to blow it out and to get it in, and to inspire people, man. And so
God bless you for that. Yeah, you're being used by the spirit.
Exactly. That's absolutely. Listen, what Swami was saying to you, I'm going to transcribe that because that in a nutshell, the idea of when the spirit takes over is where I'm at, and it's a
meeting God face to face, theosis.
It's a sacred journey. It's a sacred journey.
Yes. Hey, I want to say one thing about the music. You're talking about Detroit.
Go ahead.
My friend Tom Wall has a group called the Cosmic Knot, and I have a band called Muruga in the Cosmic Hoedown Band, right? Because I went so out that I said I'm going to bring the outness into rhythm so people could understand even the rhythms of Middle America, hoedown, funk, blues, rock, but with outness and the inness all at the same time, and so you could get them dancing and trancing at the same time. See, so here he did his album Inner Space, and he had a gig last night where we did his record release, and I opened up the show, and along with this other group, the Gasoline Gypsies, and my friend's group, the Cosmic Knot, and my group. And who comes to visit me is Billy Davis, who played guitar with Hank Ballard and the Midnighters and the Isaac Brothers. And when he was with Hank Ballard, Jimi Hendrix came to see him and asked him if he would come and visit, because he was a star with Hank Ballard and the Midnighters, right? The beginning of rock and roll and soul and blues. And so Billy Davis goes to Jimi Hendrix's house with his father and ends up giving him a guitar. And you'll realize when you see Billy Davis where Hendrix got his influence, right? My friend Tom's here. He's to testify. He's the other guitar player with Cosmic, the band leader of Cosmic Knot. But, I mean, you're thinking you're seeing Hendrix, and this guy came and he played the guitar and sang, and Misty Love, who sang Cowboy with Kid Rock, came down, and we took it to the funk and the jazz, and it was all fusion, and it was one cosmic event. And I just want you to know that Detroit and Ann Arbor and in these places in the inner cities, they're still going on. And there's these here hep people. Some people helped cause the beginning of rock and jazz and blues. They're still out there. And I want to tell all you people, please, when you find them, help support what they do, because they're the geniuses. They're why we are what we are. They're the beginning of the music field. And these people are still out there like that, like Billy Davis. What a genius!
Well, no, but I just want to be clear. I want to be clear. Was James Gadsden on drums in that band with Hank Ballard?
I couldn't even tell you that. I'm sorry, I don't know that.
But Gadsden told me with Ballard that they would play. One of the reasons that your ears were so huge was because Ballard would play two sets. His backing band would play the first set, and basically they were playing. They at this time they were playing like modal jazz, a lot of Coltrane tunes. So they were stretching out in that first set, and they'd be playing like a lot of abstract jazz. And then Ballard would come on and do his set. But I mean, I'm curious when Billy Davis wound up in that band, because Gadsden was. The point was that when Gadsden wound up in L.A., he was starving to death, but he eventually became this massive studio drummer. But he was a mess, because when he joined the 103rd Street Watts rhythm band, it was so different from the kind of Coltranean music that he had been playing. You guys were just, I mean, your palette was huge, your hearts were bigger, and you learned from the original masters of philosophy, wisdom, love, and music. And so that's what I'm trying to build, that bridge in an oral history fashion on my radio show, Muruga. So let's just stay in touch. Let's do, maybe next week we can do part 2, man.
Wonderful. Let's do part 2 next week. And then I'll talk to you about playing with nature, and when I was with Paul Winter, how he thought I was a little weird and crazy because I would take my drums into the woods and play with the nature itself.
Well, I think if Paul Winter thinks you're weird, that's probably a really good thing. So
Yeah, it is, but he ended up then playing. I explained to him, I'm playing with birds, with the sound, with the wind. That's what cosmic music is. See, when you are a part of nature talking with the rest of nature, and nature is talking back to you, then you are cosmic. That's what people like.
Yeah, no, I had that experience the other day here in Tucson. I was howling at we had a big storm. I'm right there, man. The spirits have aligned.
I know you are.
Yeah.
I know. No, look at. I knew you were there just from the first minute I talked to you. Even before I talked to you, I mean, you just played Thar Song, and I got a million songs that I did out there, from all kinds of styles, because I like every style, right?
Sure.
But few people know that song. God bless you.
Hey, man, we got more to do, Muruga. I'll get you a copy of this. I'll send you a copy of this interview when I put it up online, and I'll be transcribing some of these stories and blowing them out on new media, because you've lived it's been a long, strange trip, man. We'll talk soon.
But dig this. I just want to say I have a recording studio in my backyard called Sage Court, and Perry Robinson's coming with his friend Jerry from Trinidad, a percussionist, and we're going to do an album here in September.
Wow. Well, I mean, listen, you know, because I interviewed Val Sarant from Trinidad. I'm all over the place, man. This is really this is a special connection, Muruga. Much love to you, brother. Bless you, and thank you for your clarity and your wisdom and enlightenment today on the Jake Feinberg Show.
God bless you, and remember, world peace through inner peace.
Cheers.
Tolerance, love, and understanding. Cheers.
Cheers. Bye-bye. Muruga Booker dropping serious knowledge on us today. These are the unexpected, beautiful bliss occurrences on the Jake Feinberg Show. We will be back tomorrow with a heavy lineup, but unfortunately this week we lost a tremendous musician, a guy I had a chance to interview back from September of 2013. This is an interview with John Abercrombie, the great guitarist, who we lost this week. We'll see you up in the heavens, John. Until then, peace.